The Bible Treasury. A monthly magazine of papers on scriptural subjects. Volume 19, Article 1, Part 82 of 93, 1892 and 1893. The Early Chapters of Genesis. By William Kelly. Genesis 10 verse 30. The verse we are now to consider demands close investigation, as it is not without importance and difficulty also. And their dwelling was from Mesha, as thou goest to Sephar, a mountain of the east, verse 30. It is beyond question a general description of the limits within which dwelt the many sons of Joktan. We have already identified in detail their local habitation throughout Arabia, with the slight exception of those who crossed to the western shore of the narrow strait that severs their father's land from Africa. There is, therefore, the best reason to reject the idea that they left their original seats for dwellings between Mount Massius in the south part of Mesopotamia and an imaginary mount adjoining Cypher, a city in Asia, as Dr. E. Wells conjectured in his Help to the Holy Scriptures I-77, Oxford, 1728. In fact, Mount Massius forms the northern boundary of Mesopotamia, but, this is a slight misapprehension to which the II plus or minus IIA of the LXX may have led, in comparison with the chief error, as the Persian cipher, city or mount, is still more untenable. And so must one think of Dr. C. Wordsworth's idea of Mesha as an island of the Tigris and of a Sephar on the Persian Gulf. Such limits do not include the dwellings of Joktan's sons. Very different is the hypothesis of Bochet, Phaleg 329, who identifies Mesha with Mesa, which seems to be the same as Ptolemy's II plus or minus IIA, or IIA II plus or minus in the Peripla S, a little north of the Straits of Bab el-Mandeb. But as he considers Sephar to be the mountain near Sephar in the hill country between Yemen and Hadramaut, it seems clear that such limits, little above 200 miles, are incompatible with the widespread dispersion of the sons of Joktan throughout the southern half of the peninsula. For the east seems no difficulty when we bear in mind its usage as in Genesis 25 verse 6. Gazanius, Thess I 823, inclined therefore to the suggestion of J. D. Michaelis, Speisel 214, Supple 1561, of a Messene, or middle land, between the mouths of the Pastigres. Hence he understood the last part of our verse to mean from Mesha unto Sephar and, or as far as, the mountain land of Arabia. He lays it down as certain that mountain in the east is not to be joined in apposition with Sephar, but is some other third place to which the boundary extended. It is difficult to understand on what ground this consummate Hebraist so decidedly maintained a construction which seems extremely harsh, for his rationalism did not here intrude to bias him. Like many, he and of late M. Frasnel, Lettres sur l'histoire des Arabes, regarded Sephar as the metropolis of the region of Shur, between Hadramaut and Oman, as the highland of the east. He held to be the chain of mountains near the middle of Arabia from the Hejaz on the Persian Gulf. It is called today Dhafar-i or Dhafar. But as of the ancient name, so of the modern, there are various places so called. It becomes, therefore, a nice point to decide which is here intended. For there are, as C. Niebuhr and E. S. Poole say, no less than 4 places bearing the same name, besides several others bearing names that are merely variations from the same root. Now Niebuhr, Descre 3 206, 207, speaks both of the ruins of Dhafar near Yemen, and of Sumarat or Nakl Sumarat as the greatest and the highest mountain he had ascended in Yemen, and very probably the same that the Greek geographers called Climax, I 1/4 I plus or minus I 3/4 A 1/2 I of C. Toll 6-7. This is near the Dhafar which Bochet identifies with the I plus or minus I plus or minus I 1/4 I superscript 1 I of Ptolemy, capital of the I plus or minus I plus or minus I plus or minus I superscript 1, 6 825, and with the Sephar in our text. Dhafar seems the same city a little disguised, which the author of the Periplus and Diodorus called Afar, as others call it Tafar. If then Sephar be traced to the Dhafar on the border of Yemen and Hadramaut in the southwest of Arabia, This goes far to determine the site of Mesha as in the northeast of the peninsula. This satisfies best the compendious summary of the Joktanite settlements, answering to the similar allusion to the Canaanite border, north and south in verse 19, which follows the details of their several families. Now there is a mountain chain in the Neoid, which was the boundary of the sons of Joktan in that very region, on the north of which wandered their adversaries, the sure indication of a distinct race. See note. The Beni Shaman or Salmon, the sons of Mishma or Masma, son of Ishmael, being no other than the II plus or minus I superscript 1 II plus or minus I superscript 1 I 1/4 I plus or minus I 1/2 IAI of Tol. 6-7, A21, jealously guarded Mount Zames or Zamataz, as the Alexandrian geographer calls the mountain, against intrusion from the south, where lay the II plus or minus II plus or minus I 1/2 AII plus or minus I superscript 1 or Joktanite races. Equally hostile were the Enizi, or gang of Kenaz. Hence Chesney's suggestion of Mecca for Mesha is untenable, for the tribe of Harb, the Serbi, Dari, etc., descendants of Kedar and enemies of the Joktanites, was paramount in the Hejaz. The Kenzits, or sons of Kenaz, were of Edomite extraction and dwelt north of the Salapini, or sons of Shalef, a Joktanite. Note. These the Metir Arabs strengthened their party by an alliance with the Cotton Arabs, while the Enizi were assisted by the Beni Shaman. Between these tribes, an inveterate hatred subsisted, which every spring was the cause of much bloodshed and checked the commercial intercourse with the Hejaz. Burkhart's Travels in Arabia, 2401. End of note. It may be added that it was to Yemen the Greek and Latin geographers applied the epithet IA 1/2 II plus or minus II 1/4 II 1/2, or Felix, happy, which was at a later time extended more widely, as when one of our own poets speaks of Araby the blessed. There was no little exaggeration in allowing the justice of such a claim, even allowing for the mystery in which the Arabian traders indulged with their western and even eastern customers, in attributing to their own country some precious imports from lands more distant still. For mendacity has long infected the Arab people like others of the East. Yet it is not improbable, as Oriental scholars suggest, that the designation may have been an accidental misnomer. Thus Felix was a mistranslation of El Yemen, or the right hand, the fortunate side in the usage of the Greeks, whom the Roman poets mostly followed, notoriously, as the face was directed to the east, so the peninsula lay as compared with Syria, Esh-Sham, the left hand. Hence was Arabia said to be fortunate or blessed through a word of good omen, which was afterwards by a mistake construed of extraordinary wealth and fertility. If Mohammedan fanaticism has for long centuries shut out Arabia and its numerous races from the free or friendly intercourse of the rest of mankind, it is interesting to note the striking help given by the Greek and Latin geographers before and since the Christian era to identify places and races with those which then existed. Of comparatively late years the travels of G. Niebuhr, Burckhardt, and Wellsted have contributed to prove that they still exist, though it also appears that the religious imposture has not failed to cover the land and the people with malignant and withering influence. For there are but traces and ruins where considerable tribes and cities once flourished. Happily, for the object here in view in no part of the world do names abide more signally resisting change or surviving it, than among the sons of the East.